What advice do you give women who are trying to build their confidence in this world?
Think of being a woman as an asset. Most of the time you're in rooms with men. Don't think about it like a liability. Don't think you're lesser than or don't get insecure.
Mm-hmm.
Just go in there and own your shit and know that you can be scared but still walk through the door. As you venture into the world of trying to raise capital or build a business or tell people about your ideas, know that you don't need people's validation to do what you want to do. You need to be willing to work your ass off for a very long time. So I would just say you've got this and just go for it and don't look back.
Welcome to Business Untitled. I think it's episode 23. We're very proud and happy today to have Gregg Renfrew. She's the founder, a true entrepreneur, founder of Beautycounter, which to many of us guys out there don't use as products, but she's a disruptor in the cosmetics industry and really is like one of the founders of the concept of clean beauty. She's an activist for environmentalism, women empowerment, safe products, and we're really happy to have her here.
Our third female guest on Business Untitled. We're committed to having
Well
a
done, guys.
A true entrepreneur. So welcome, Gregg.
Well done, thank you for having me.
And I did get Kiehl's. The last female gave me a whole Kiehl's was my first beauty product I ever had.
Okay, well we gotta.
This is
make
like
a
his
change on that
pitch.
one.
This is his pitch for something free.
Yeah, well I'll give you something free, but definitely not Kiehl's.
Yeah.
All right.
So I was going to say, usually we start with early life a little bit and what motivated people. I know I'd read some things on you, and you had some disruptions or early struggles in your life, maybe financially as you described it, and certainly always had an entrepreneurial spirit and drive, it seems, right, from like cleaning companies. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what kind of created the drive and hunger and confidence in you that you have today?
Well, I think confidence, I'll start with the confidence and then I'll go to the drive. I think the confidence came from my parents, both my mother and father. From the earliest age told me you can be anything you want to be in the world. You can be the president of the United States if you want to be. You just have to be willing to work really, really hard. But don't let anyone ever underestimate you. We were talking a moment ago, I was named Gregg, which is my mom's maiden name. So from the beginning, I was always feisty and it was always having to prove that I, had confidence and whatever, being put at the table with all the boys when I was literally in first grade. So I think that was probably the greatest gift my parents gave me, was the gift of confidence, which seems obvious, but to many women, it's not there. No one's telling them that they're good enough when they're young. In terms of my drive, I think I grew up with, both of my parents came from very well-positioned families by most standards, and yet when my dad was a big Wall Street block trader, very successful, my mom was not working at the time, but my dad was pretty difficult and arrogant and lost his job, and we became financially unstable pretty quickly. My mom took her 2-year college degree and went back into real estate and became one of the top people in New York real estate. And so I watched them struggle. It wasn't a given that we had money all the time, and it made me really want to stand on my own 2 feet. And so I became pretty resourceful. If I wanted pocket money or I wanted to do things, I knew I had to come up with the money myself. I couldn't depend on my parents. Although, yes, they kept a roof over our heads, and my mom ultimately made enough money to give me a debt-free education, which I'm very appreciative of. But financial instability can get you going.
Mm-hmm. We always ask that question: Did you grow up rich, middle class, or poor? And so you kind of had it both.
Yeah.
You kind of grew up rich, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
shout out to your mom.
The rich went down pretty quickly, so I was still pretty young. But
then your mom brought it back.
But my mom brought
Shout
it back,
out
and
to
she
her.
would buy and sell homes. She
Shout out
got
to
into
mom.
real estate. Yeah, my mom has been a huge influence in my life, and she was one of those people, and you see people who fall into challenging circumstances that feel sorry for themselves. She wasn't one of those people. She just got on with it and made things happen and provided a great life for me and my brother.
Yeah. I was going to ask, you went to Miss Porter's, right? Which
I
for
did.
high school, boarding
you
school.
You cannot make fun of it.
I'm not going to make fun of it.
I was going to make fun of it.
It's all girls.
Yes,
Oh,
it's
I
all
know.
girls.
Yeah, I know
Yes.
you know that. I'm just telling our audience. And,
It's been a long week.
I'd like to know, was that an influence? Was that something that shaped you when you look back on it in terms of how confident and successful?
What was it
you
like?
did?
100%.
Yeah, what was it like?
Well, first of all, I both of my parents went to boarding school. It was part of our family. They just did that. So I was always going to go to boarding school. I mean, my mom basically said you can either go to the local public high school or you can go away. And once I took a look at schools, I thought, well, this is an incredible opportunity. So I actually looked at 11 boarding schools. Only one was all girls. I chose Porter's. I absolutely loved it all 4 years. It was unbelievable. I think that they feel you have a responsibility as a young woman to shape an ever-changing world and to be, to really have a strong moral compass and to be a person of the world. And I think it gave me the confidence I was able to see women as leaders and women who were successful, not in any there was no anti-men situation there. It was just, you've got this. And I think it made me the person I am today. Absolutely.
It's funny. I watched the Barbie movie yesterday for the first time, and five minutes in, I was like, I'm not watching this. 20 minutes in, I was glued to it because it was such a good, cool message about women empowerment, and watching Ken try to take over, be a man, and they kicked his ass. I was there like, woo, Barbie. But boarding school is funny. When we were little, I would get in trouble in school, and my mom would always threaten me and be like, you're going to go to boarding school. And I would be so scared.
I don't think the boarding schools in Jamaica were the same
Wait,
ones.
no, this was here.
He's not from Jamaica.
Yeah, bro, what is wrong with you today?
Trinidad.
Took him to my country, and he's calling it Jamaica. And yeah,
Literally.
You're on a roll already.
he's on a roll. Are you okay today?
I barely
Mr.
got any
Novogratz?
sleep.
He's wearing pink pants.
And then I figured out that I was so scared of this, and then I figured out, wait a minute, Mom can't afford boarding school. So I gave more trouble, and I didn't go to boarding school.
Yeah.
And then after that, you went to Vermont, right? How'd that shape you?
I always say I majored in my boyfriend. I think after 4 years of an all-girls boarding school, I didn't spend a whole lot of time studying. I was on the way over here talking about how I was just kind of not a very good student. I'm sure I have ADHD, but I wasn't a great college student. I partied a lot. I mean, I studied English, which I think gave me a strong foundation in terms of being able to communicate and write well, and I'm a voracious reader, but I really just kind of had fun in college, if I'm being completely honest. But it was, it was great. I mean, it was a beautiful city.
Do you think like Vermont's like sustainability kind of ethos was something that kind of filtered into you in a sense? Like, is it this mix of experiences? Because like Beautycounter is pretty, like unique in that way that it's both ethical, it's business model, it's. How do you,
No, it's funny because UVM has now like the top sustainability program in the country. And, I think for me, actually, it's interesting because when I think about things that shaped me in college, we had a whole tented sort of encampment. It was a bunch of students protesting apartheid in South Africa. Ironically, I ended up marrying a person from South Africa.
You must be my age, even though you look younger.
I'm old, yeah.
Yeah, now I know exactly how old you are because we had that same
I'm
test.
55. So anyway, but I think that that shaped me more than the environmental initiatives in Vermont. I do remember that quite distinctly, but. Yeah, right. But now, I think now they're very focused on.
Is Ben and Jerry from Vermont?
Yes,
and Ben and Jerry's was actually
that was one of the first.
Yes, it was, and it was they were just starting to explode when I was in college.
Yeah, it was really like almost one of the models for BCorps, right?
Yes.
For these kind of like corporations that go beyond just profitability. I think they were one of the first ones.
They were one of the first, and we were early on.
You were a
too.
B Corp as well.
We are a B Corp, and I believe wholeheartedly in that model.
Right. B Corp is what we were talking about with Warby Parker guys.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just
in terms of
I know
like,
those guys well. Yeah.
Can we explain to our audience what is B Corp?
A C Corp, or the traditional form of corporation, profit, really shareholders' return and profit is the only thing that's allowed to be considered by the board and the management. And with a B Corp, you're allowed to consider employees, stakeholders, community, things like that. So it gives you more latitude to be, the environment.
Triple bottom line.
Right.
And
am I correct with that?
It's not even the opportunity. You actually, as a board, your fiduciary responsibility requires you that if you're in a sale process or whatever, that you actually have to look at these things and weigh them out. You can't just go for the highest price if they're not ethically and responsibly sourcing or they're not treating workers well. In my belief, I believe that this is where we need to go. When I think about the capital markets, showing that companies can do well and be financially successful and not, decimate the earth, take care of people. I mean, this is really, really important for our future.
Definitely. And we talk about this a lot on here, about like just pure rapacious capitalism versus like balance of that. Right, Mike?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
growing up with my sister, I have a sister who runs a thing called Acumen Fund, but my whole life, it's been, how do you help the bottom, it used to be the 3 billion people that lived at the bottom of the pyramid, right? We said in 1995, there were 3 billion people on the planet that made less than $3 a day. Today, that's less than 900 million. So like, but it's like, how do you create ethical companies,
Right.
and
Right. Because not-for-profits can only do so much.
Yeah.
Effectively, right? You need to harness the power of
how do you find ethical
private.
leaders? How do you find moral leaders?
Yeah.
Not easy.
Yeah.
No, it's not easy. And actually, it's funny you say that because I do think that it's not easy to do, but it's absolutely possible. And consumers are demanding of companies that they do better, and they are rewarding companies that are doing better. And so I do think it's a real opportunity for all businesses today. But you have to drive profits. I mean, I also don't believe in the model which has been very prevalent in the consumer markets over the last decade or so, which is growth at all costs, but it doesn't matter if you're hemorrhaging cash. I mean, that's not sustainable either.
Right. So you want to talk about I know you had many experiences before Beautycounter, right? You founded that 10 years ago, 11 years ago?
I started Beautycounter. I started concepting it in late 2010. We launched in March of 13. It took a couple of years to get it going.
And so what brought you to that moment, prior experiences, or what was your aha moment? How did you,
Watch the documentary. Right?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It started in 2006. I was living here in New York and was running a clothing company for Tommy and Susie Hilfiger. And my friend encouraged me to watch An Inconvenient Truth. And it was the first time that I became aware of the fact that I was doing things that were detrimental to the earth. And I really quickly became impassioned with the environmental health movement. And over the next 2 years, and you all have experienced this as well, I watched so many people I love get sick. Friends of mine were being diagnosed with different types of cancer. My friends were struggling with fertility issues, having to use surrogates to bring kids into the world, or just giving birth to kids with really serious health issues, ADHD, autism, asthma. And I thought, what's gone so terribly awry with the health of the earth and human health? And one of the things that I learned is that we're being exposed to lots of toxic chemicals, and they're omnipresent. And so I started to make a lot of changes, and that was easy to do in a lot of areas, like getting rid of plastic containers or washing my floors with, water and vinegar instead of, what I've been using. But when it came to personal care products, skincare products, makeup, anything like that, there just weren't any products that met my needs in the market. There were all the incumbent brands who were aspirational and high performance, and we all grown up with them and loved them, but they were filled with chemicals of concern. And then on the other end of the spectrum, they had all these very earthy things. I mean, you said it a moment ago, about nonprofits. That type of product line only appeals to a small segment of the population. And I thought, why can't we have a commercially viable product that is high performing and significantly safer? And instead of doing this as sort of creating a movement that's a nonprofit movement, let's do it in a commercial way, which is what we did.
And I read this somewhere, and I'm hoping that it's not true because it sounds so crazy. The U.S. has 30 ingredients that are banned versus the UE, versus Europe that has 1,400. Is that actually true?
That is actually true.
That's insane.
Now, not all 14 of those are commonly used in personal care products, but yes, when I started Beautycounter, we had not updated major federal law governing the industry. And when I talk, just to be clear, because I know a lot of your listeners are men because you don't have very many women on this program. So
After
here's the deal.
today,
When
we
I talk
got all
about
the
cosmetics or personal care, I'm talking about your shaving cream, your deodorant, your sunscreen, your bubble bath. It's everything. It's not women's lipstick. I mean, it is women's lipstick, but it's anything that falls under the category of personal care. We had not updated federal legislation governing that industry since 1938. And the U.S. had only banned 11 chemicals when I started Beautycounter. Now we're up to a whopping 30, whereas the EU bans or restricts 1,400.
And you're trying to get it to 2,800.
We're trying to get, we have a never list, which we were the first company to publicly publish what we call our never list, which we trademark, which is a list of ingredients that we know cause harm to health that we do not use in our
Give
formulations.
us a couple of examples. Like
Formaldehyde.
Right,
Formaldehyde.
That's intuitive,
phthalates.
right?
Phthalates are, it's intuitive, but you'd be surprised, and it shows up in sort of ways that you might not know. An example would be phthalates. So phthalates are a class of chemicals that very closely mimic the endocrine system, and because they closely mimic it, your body doesn't necessarily know to reject it. And those phthalates are used in all perfumes, scents, anything to bind it to your skin. It's in your car, new car smell. It's in vinyl shower curtains. But so when you think about fragrance, which is $1 in $4 spent in beauty, and it's in everything, right? It's in our lotions, our shampoos. That's one that's a super offensive chemical, a class of chemicals that are widely used.
So how do you? Let's assume he's making his perfume with phthalates. Phthalates, is it?
Phthalates.
Phthalates, and you're going to make perfume without it. How are you going to recreate the smell, the scent?
So it's not so much about the scent; it's about
How it sticks to you.
creating how it sticks to you. And yeah, we used cedarwood, and there are a whole bunch of ingredients. And I'm not a chemist, so but we used a bunch of ingredients that drove the performance that we needed without using phthalates. There are a lot of parabens, methylparaben, ethylparaben, oxybenzone in sunscreen, killing the coral reefs, horrible for your body. Don't use those clear spray sunscreens; they're just terrible for the environment, the coral. Yourself.
Hey, remember we were down at Bacalar at Hopping
Yeah.
House? No sunscreen allowed?
Yeah.
How do I
'cause
not
of the
go
coral.
home and just
coral.
not throw
that in
everything
Hawaii?
out my?
No, it's in
trash
Mexico.
Oh, because we really focused with Hawaii on the safer sunscreen, but Hawaii is very focused on it because they started to see like a sheen
Yeah.
all around mountain stuff, and they were realizing it was killing. Which
Wow.
tourism is obviously extremely important for Hawaii and the environment. So they banned all non-mineral sunscreens.
Yeah.
So this has really got to be like a federal approach where you put a think tank together and say, okay, and it's got to be phased in if you want to really make change. Otherwise, because if you snap your fingers, you've just put everyone out of business, which would be kind of nice for you, but
No, I
it's
mean,
not the way the world works. How do you,
She's
how do you
been
make
she's
change?
been legislating on the Hill quite a bit, right, and been passing laws, basically regulations in this. You could.
Yeah, no, so Beautycounter, we started it as a community-based sort of underground movement. So when I decided that I wanted to launch this product line, I thought, how am I going to bring these products to market, knowing that the incumbents controlled all the shelf space and didn't want the story to get out. And so I actually took a look at the direct selling industry and traditional retail, which is where I'd grown up, in e-commerce, and we created an omni-channel community-based model. I really do believe in community-based commerce, and we created a platform upon which women could build businesses with us and also advocate alongside of us. And so when I was running when I was CEO before, I'm now CEO again, but when I was CEO for the first 8 years, we had about 65,000 women, and we utilized them as not only customer acquisition vehicles, but amplification vehicles for us. And they have advocated with us on the state level, federal level, in Parliament. We've hosted over 2,000 meetings on the Hill, and we've helped pass 16 pieces of legislation, including MOCRA. We were very front and center in MOCRA, which is the first time we've updated federal law
Wow.
since
That's amazing.
1938.
That's really cool that you
tell
were
you
able to
what.
mobilize all those, advocates, right, and community, people in your organization. Because otherwise, if it was just your voice, it probably would have been a lot harder to get that kind of response. Would that be?
Yeah, I mean,
True.
we all know that members of Congress have to answer to their constituents, and these women, again, every single person in this room has been touched directly or or indirectly by the health issues we face, and so it's very personal for people. And so, people want to participate in their democracy. They want to lend their voices to issues that matter. And certainly women who are dealing with kids who are sick or friends with cancer, or they themselves have been ill, or they want this to change. So we've been really, really focused on advocacy as a core tenet of our business and our brand.
So you said just now you was CEO and now you're CEO again. So you built this amazing company, sold it to, I think, the Carlyle Group. They restructured it, and they asked you to step down, or did you just step down?
They made the decision to have me step down.
And
CEO
then
2 years ago.
I'm just assuming they realized we fucked up, and they asked you to come back. How was that selling part of this amazing company you built, being asked to step down, and then later on, what was that emotion like? And then later on, them coming back and saying, "Hey, by the way, we really need you."
Yeah.
Can you describe both of those?
And I can, kind of. So, yes, I mean, selling my business to the Carlyle Group was, as a female entrepreneur, to sell a business valued at $1 billion, which in the in the cosmetics industry is a huge valuation. So it was an incredible honor. I was incredibly excited. My goal was to continue to build on this business and to IPO it. When I sold the company, the business slowed. It was the summer after the world kind of opened up. It was summer of 2021, and I think that people maybe felt that we needed a older school executive from the beauty industry, and so they brought a man to run the business who had been previously at Shiseido. That has not been as successful as they had hoped, and so I have been brought back in to be the CEO again to really rebuild the business into what it has the potential to be.
Did you feel like, were you emotionally like at the time when they asked you to? Was it a surprise? Did you know it was coming? Like, did you feel like, wait, what is even like? What was that feeling like?
Here's how, maybe I shouldn't start this on the podcast. I mean, it's kind of like this. I'll put it into human terms. So you're happily married and in love with your spouse and thinking you're going to go the distance, and then they decide they don't want to be married to you anymore because they've met someone who's younger and sexier. And so you have to go in front of the family to all the weddings with your kids and smile and make sure that everyone thinks that you're happy. But of course, you're dying inside. And then they realize that they're maybe not so in love with the younger person. And so then they come back to you and say, let's make our family work again. Just as you got over it. There you go. That's what it feels like.
That's
kind of
amazing.
shitty.
That's the best
cool.
answer we've had on business so far.
That's a really good answer. Was there a part of you that was like, maybe not, or you just
Coming back?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, really?
But now I just want to prove that I'll be the next Steve Jobs, and that you guys are going to be talking about this in 10 years. That someone was underestimated, this woman, and she came back and once again led the business super
Do
successfully.
you think women in general are underestimated in the business force?
Yes. Well, I think that women do themselves a disservice of walking into rooms and thinking that they are a liability versus an asset. Being a woman is a liability. I think that we are both patronized and underestimated consistently, and we also play into it and we allow for it. So it's a combination. Women aren't necessarily really good to other women in business because they're trying to prove themselves to men. But I can tell you, I just was right before I came here, I was on a text chain with a group of women with whom I used to work, because I have a business I do that I'm going to do about men in business and the stupid things they say to us women all the time. And someone said that they got a call.
on that list?
Maybe we'll see. We'll see how you guys do. And this woman was saying that this friend of mine who's also CEO said another woman who's a kick-ass CEO had gotten a call saying that they thought that she was the right person for the job because they liked her personal style. And the woman said, and I know I'm going to have to pay $20 or $100, whatever. The woman on the text chain was like, what the fuck? Like, you would never say that to a man. Like, we're going to hire you because of your personal style. I mean, maybe if you're Tom Ford for a fashion business, but for a business that's not in fashion. Yeah. And then they went on to say the other person got a call. Literally, CMO, top CMO, huge company, just got a call from a recruiter saying that the company that wanted to talk to her, and I'm literally not making this up, because they thought she could be really helpful at redecorating the corporate offices. And when you say stuff like that, you've got to be kidding yourself. Yeah. And if I can give you one piece of advice, which women, the one thing you could stop saying to women in general as men, and maybe you don't, is none of us like to be to hear the phrase "in other words." We got it. If we don't understand what you said, we'll ask you otherwise. Just assume we understood it the first time you said it. You don't need to say "in other words" because we're not stupid. Yeah. And I think that happens a lot. And so, it's a combination, to be honest.
What advice do you give women who are trying to build their confidence in this world? Like, that's the man's side. How if you're up and coming or trying to start a business, how do you deal with that?
I just spoke at a women's thing this morning about, we were talking about, investing in female founders and entrepreneurs. Look, I think at the end of the day, one, I always say, like, think of being a woman as an asset. Most of the time you're in rooms with men. Don't think about it like a liability. Don't think you're lesser than, or don't get insecure. Mm-hmm. Just go in there and own your shit and know that you can be scared but still walk through the door. Mm-hmm. And that you don't have to have a chip on your shoulder, because women do a lot of the time have a chip on their shoulder, and they're also scared to be direct. We're scared to talk about money. Mm-hmm. We're scared to just say, actually, I can command the salary, and this is why. Mm-hmm. We're scared to ask for a raise. And so we're partially responsible for this. And so I want women to know that they've got everything they need to be successful. They just got to walk through the door.
Yeah. That's a big point, like scared to talk about money, right? Like in that context. Like, I mean, just focusing on that for a second. But that men are much more comfortable in general talking about their money, their salaries, their things, and it's probably pretty deep. I don't know, you know better why, but
Dave's got 2 young sons and a daughter who are friends with my 2 young daughters and 2 young sons, and it's shocking to see the boys who are now 26. You know, they know exactly what each guy gets paid, what their salaries are, how he did on his bonus. You know, there's a money culture. They gamble together, they sports bet together, they crypto together. The girls, there's none of that, none of it. And so, even from a young start, and these were privileged kids who went to good schools, prep schools, and good colleges. It is such a different way they interact with each other.
Well, it's funny you say this. So I was in this breakfast this morning, and we were talking about how there's a woman who was at Goldman, very successful investor. She's married to one of the founders of one of the top private equity firms. And she was saying that she met a female founder, wanted to invest in her business. And so she thought, no problem, like, we'll get you $500,000. Let me call my friends, all of whom had real, access to significant amounts of capital. She called all these women up, and she was able to raise $100,000. And she's like, you've got to be kidding me. Her husband said, I just want you to try this. Send a text out to a bunch of your friends. Same dinner, same moment. He raised $1 million in the same amount of time. And it's interesting because women apologize for spending. Women get scared to talk about it. I always say, my husband will go buy a car without asking me, which is fine. But I wouldn't, even though I earn a lot of money, would not go buy a car without talking to my husband about it. Not that I ask for his permission, because I definitely don't. But also, one of the problems is that when talking about money is that oftentimes the women aren't the breadwinners. So it's very uncomfortable to talk about it. And women are considered to be bitches when we are direct and talk about money. You're considered to be tough. It's not feminine to talk about money or to be super direct. But the reality is, we can own our power too. But we have to be. The world has to give us permission to talk about these things and to be direct and strong and not be considered to be a tough bitch. I mean, really, it's a hard. It's a weird conundrum.
Hard line. It is.
Do you want to replace Mike on this show?
No.
No.
we need a woman on this show, co-host.
That's a good
No, but
idea.
you know what? I could relate to that too, because obviously I'm black, and
Really? I didn't know that.
I'm just saying.
And we just thought that you had a good shirt.
No, but and I had to learn, growing up poor and coming into these circles, I had to I had to figure out, don't be afraid to talk about money. And something happened recently, and Mike had to remind me that, don't be afraid to talk about money, right? And a lot of times, I had to learn that being black, even though we've had so many things that has worked to disadvantage, at times I have to use it to my advantage. And that's something that I could relate to, because it's something I had to learn and get the confidence to do it. And sometimes I'm still like, oh my God, I shouldn't be in this room. I'm a high school dropout. And I have to remind myself, or sometimes Dave or Mike have to remind me, look, you're successful. It doesn't matter what, if you went to high school, if you didn't, what community you grew up in, but it still kind of lives in you. So I understand exactly what you're saying. And it's something to this day I struggle with, but at times I have to remember, use it with confidence, and it's okay. You're good enough to be in this room. You could talk about money, and so I do relate to that, and I understand that fully well.
Yeah.
Not a woman, but I am black, in case anybody.
You're such a sensitive guy too.
I was going to ask, with Beautycounter, when you message that, right, there's a few things going on at once, which is my personal health, right? Part of what's powerful about that is, I don't want to put stuff that's going to kill me, right, in effect. There's environmental health. That's often a tougher thing to sell, right? It goes in some box, fuzzy box or whatever. And then there's somewhere in between, and I guess it would go more in environmental health, but fast fashion, the equivalent of that in fast cosmetics or fast skincare or whatever you want, fast beauty. Is that same paradigm exist, say, in fashion or in other
100%.
industries? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because fast fashion is one of the things that I publicly swore off, or I make my daughters plant trees is Zara and some of these things.
Yep.
Because they are, when you look at it, I mean, there's a documentary on this. I'm spacing the name right now, but it talks about, we always say, well, we're just going to donate these clothes, but there's like landfill all over the world in these third world countries that cannot handle. There's nowhere else to put these clothes, and it used to be that in the States, something like 67% of clothes were made in the U.S., and we would invest in pieces that we would keep for a decade. A nice suit or something. If you bought a jacket, you'd spend $1,000 on it, but instead of buying 10 $100 jackets, you buy one and you keep it the whole time. And I think that has permeated culture in a way that is really not good for anyone.
Yeah.
And I also always say to people, and it's true of cosmetics as well, but let's use the idea of like a white T-shirt, and this goes back to that film, or a lipstick for $5. Really, was that person paid a fair wage? You had to buy the raw materials. You had to ship the raw materials. You had to package them. You had to put packaging around it. You had to ship it across the world and get it into stores who mark it up by at least usually double.
Yeah.
And yet it was only $5. So that person that started at the beginning of this whole, supply chain, did they get paid? No, of course not. They get paid nothing. And, when you talk about the environmental impact of fast fashion or in beauty as well, what you're finding is, what we're spraying on crops, the pesticides around the world to increase productivity of crops. It's, you go to countries, in Southeast Asia and stuff that are producing a lot of these garments, and people are getting sick because they're being exposed to all these things. So it is a real problem. And it's trying to strike the balance. I mean, I think for me at Beautycounter, I've always wanted to educate, to arm people with information so they can make informed choices, not to try to be negative or to point fingers or to scare people. Just say, like, this is the real of what's happening. Here are some solutions that we've created through product. Help us use commerce as an engine for change, and then help us advocate for more regulation so that all, that people are ethically and responsibly sourcing palm oil as an example. Showing people that there's a path forward. We need to do that. And but it's very true. In fashion, beauty, we have the consumerism. It's like it's about new and it's about cheap, and we got to stop that.
Yeah.
Well, I am completely fucking afraid. I could literally feel my clothes melting through my skin, my lotion, like...
You've never met someone that uses more lotion than Mel.
Okay, well, I should have brought some today. I'm sorry.
He is the king of
I'm
lotion.
going to send you to our store on Prince
Yes,
Street in the
please.
city, and I'll get you some
We're
lotion.
also
We have a store on
hypochondriac.
Prince
Whenever
Street.
we travel, we fly to New Orleans, we fly to Memphis. The first stop is the Dwayne Reed, so we can buy a
That's
giant
actually true.
thing of lotion.
And a toothbrush, which
And a
usually
toothbrush.
forgets.
Well, if you're buying lotion, and for everyone out there, all joking aside, because I know that a large portion of your audience is men, you should, if nothing else, shop fragrance-free. So many of the worst and most offensive chemicals are found in fragrance because they're protected under international IP law. No one has to disclose what goes into any of the scents in anything. And also deodorant, you do not want deodorant with aluminum in it because men are getting breast cancer all the time now, if you think about and where it shows up right next to.
Wow.
So, use a safer non-aluminum deodorant.
I'm
Those are
definitely
two
calling you
things.
the next time I go, like, food shopping, beauty
I'll
shopping.
send you some products.
everything.
Or Mel, you can just do what I do and use no products.
Or you can do that too.
That's what I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not like that. It's crazy.
No, it's not. I'm really interested because it's not immediately intuitive that the stuff you put on your skin
Right, it's
is
not
as
like
bad
food
as what
poisoning
you're
or something.
ingesting, right? So we're naturally inclined to think about food poisoning because it hurts, but this is something that you really don't see, you don't feel,
Yeah.
and just hits you over time.
And it's slow motion.
How much time does it take for these chemicals to actually hit you? Is it like it's different for everyone, or over 10 years, or
Yeah, look,
5
I don't think
years?
we really know exactly. We know that a lot of what we put on our body is absorbed into our skin. And just to be really clear, there are plenty of chemicals that are totally safe.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of natural ingredients that are unsafe and natural ingredients that are safe. And, if you think about something absorbing into your skin, if you've ever sat in a bathtub and your get really like wrinkled prune-like skin, that's because it's absorbing, your skin's absorbing things. So what I think what's scariest about the chemicals in skincare, as an example, something that absorbs versus like a rinse-off conditioner in your hair, is that what people don't think about is it's maybe not a big deal what was in your sunscreen, let's just say. But it's the sunscreen combined with let's say on a woman's face. It's the sunscreen combined with the tinted moisturizer, with what you brush your teeth with the deodorant that you put under your arm, with the hairspray that you just put in your hair. You put all these things together, and no one's testing the combination. So, and again, it's not that all ingredients are going to kill you or that it ever will make your cells unhealthy. But we do know that there is a direct link between certain chemicals that are widely used and major health issues. And it is personal. And to your point on the environment, that's, I think, why we talked a lot about, and typically if it's safe for health, it's safer for the earth. So they tend to go hand in hand because the earth and the environment, even though we live in it, like it's always out there for us.
Yep.
And it is inconvenient, which is why that title was so perfect for An Inconvenient Truth. It's inconvenient to recycle or to do all these things, but it is impacting your health.
Yeah.
What other beauty companies have taken your lead? Any?
Well, you've seen companies like Sephora and Ulta, the large retailers, and we were represented at Sephora, where they have created clean standards, and what they've done is taken a list of ingredients and asked a certain segment of them if they want to be considered to be clean to show that they've taken certain chemicals of concern out of the products, and that's kind of the first step in clean. There are a lot of companies that haven't done anything about it. And then there's some other companies out there, that we're friends with that have taken great steps. There's another skincare brand called True Botanicals as an example. There's Michelle Pfeiffer's line, Henry Rose, a fragrance line. Like, there are people that have taken it seriously. And those, if you're ever questioning and want to understand what's out there, you can always go to the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep database. They have a database of about 80,000 products. And you can look and type in whatever you're using and see how it rates on the toxicity level, and you'll know if it feels safe to you or not.
What do you think of the Fenties and the
Kylie Jenner's line?
Kylie Jenner?
Yeah, what's the name of it, Brian?
She does have a line. It's called Kylie, I think. I think that Fenty has really positioned itself in terms of inclusivity and having a really, really robust shade range. Their positioning is not about sustainability or clean. That's just not the platform upon which they've built that brand. It's really been about making sure that they're for all women, because Black and brown women in general have way less product available to them, and people haven't always invested in matching their skin tone. And I think in terms of Kylie, I think that she is working towards clean. I don't know exactly. I don't really pay a lot of attention to others. I mean, this is maybe a smart strategy or not, but I kind of just put my blinders on and I focus on what Beautycounter is doing and the core tenets of our brand and our proposition and what we promise to consumers, because I could get very caught up in what people are claiming to do or not doing. And it's just, and I also just don't want to be a brand that's pointing fingers. I just want to be like, look, let me lead by examples and hope that others will follow. And they have.
Yeah. I think that's a really important thing about business in general, which is like, sometimes I'll get that question. I'm sure you get that question, which is, who are your competitors? What are they doing? And the truth is, like, I just don't even think about that most of the time. I mean, to some degree you have to, but you're really so focused on your mission and what you believe in, right? In a sense that it almost isn't in the thought process, right? You have to believe in yourself and your mission. Do you?
Yeah, I think you have to focus on what you're bringing to the market, and what is the moat that you're creating around your brand, your business, whatever. I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about the competition. I don't really care. What I care about is, am I building a product and a business that people want to participate in whatever way? And that, I don't care if that's in finance or beauty. I mean, I always say there's only one business any of us are ever going to be in, and that's the business of people. Like, that's the business we're in. So it really doesn't matter that you didn't go to college. Like, are you emotionally intelligent? Do you know how to communicate and build teams and lead? It's not so much about whether you're selling music or real estate or, whether you're a hedge fund or, it doesn't really matter. And I think that people who spend their time like me tooing and copying other brands, like, they never really build anything that's all that great. I doubt that Patagonia spends all their time thinking about Land's End and whatever. They're just thinking, okay, well, like, this is what we do at Patagonia, and we're going to stay true to the mission of this company.
I mean, if you think about it, right, leading people, selling product, right, your people are selling it, like, they have to believe in you. They have to believe in the company, and that means you're taking them in that direction. The minute you start looking at, what's this guy doing, and don't have that confidence and that belief anymore, you pop the myth or the bubble, right, of belief in what you're doing in terms of how you're changing the world. The product, it's not going to work for you. So it, like, directly equates, I think, to, like, leading people, and you lead a lot of people. It sounds like, if you have 60,000 people that are, like, advocating for your product, right? So they need to believe that you got this and you're going, that you guys are changing the world.
Storytelling.
It's funny you say that. I just came off of a call with the private equity firm, and we were talking about how do you grow Beautycounter today, knowing that the market has matured and there are a lot more clean beauty products, whether they are or not, doesn't matter. It's sort of a phrase that's out there. And I think that certainly in consumer, but just in general, you build brands on the power of storytelling. You tell an authentic, no bullshit, transparent story about what you believe in and and you have to operationalize your brand promise, in my opinion. You can't be saying one thing and doing something else. But I think storytelling is incredibly important. And I think people emotionally attached to people, to their stories, to the stories behind the product. I think it's incredibly important. And I think this idea of community-based commerce, of community and client being one and the same, does go to emotional connection, and that comes through storytelling. And I think we have lots of opportunities today.
And you advertise how?
We don't really. I mean, we've done some advertising over the years, like performance marketing, like other DTC companies. But in general, we have this community of women who have represented us as salespeople and as advocates, and they typically amplify things. So we'll put bite-sized pieces of content out there and help them amplify it for us. I mean, we've done things like put a full-page ad in the Times saying, if you think we're just selling lipstick, you're not paying attention. We'll do that thing from time to time. We've done wild postings from time to time. But what I really think is things that matter are stories that people can relate to. And just being human as a brand, I think, is how you should market your product. I think actually in your world of finance or whatever, and I know crypto now, but one of the things I think is super interesting in the whole financial world is that what do any of those brands stand for? How do you differentiate between one private equity firm and another? I don't know, but I think actually there's a huge opportunity for people to start telling different stories, even in markets that seem that way.
Crypto is interesting because crypto is about narrative, right? Like in Bitcoin, there's been a group of people, and it's growing and growing, that have told this mythology and this story about Bitcoin and where it came from and why it's important. And so the whole thing is a social construct that starts from narrative, and the other coins as well. But you're right on, Goldman Sachs versus Morgan Stanley. Man, Goldman Sachs, I spent 12 years there. We used to always say, well, it's about trust. We want our clients to trust us, to think we're the smartest guys in the room. And, they work really hard to build that trust.
Yeah.
And once you build that trust, people don't even care what you charge them. You can actually, you have okay results and charge them more because people trust you. No one gets fired for dealing with Goldman Sachs, or at least you used to not get fired before they became the vampire squid. But yeah, it's interesting because your point of how do you connect, and it is all about story and trust. That's it.
Trust is really important, and we've at Beautycounter, I say we're going to be what you can count on us for is transparency. So if when you purchase a product, we're going to tell you what's in it. You might not like the ingredients, but at least you'll know. And when we've had problems, or when we see things and we're trying to create systemic change, but we don't have the answers, like when we realized that there were children mining the mica that we were using because we actually physically went and audited the mines, we told that story. We found little children who were 4 and 5 years old in India, in Brazil, mining for mica for all of our cosmetics, but also all of our cars and everything else that mica goes into. And instead of just saying, oh, we're going to use synthetic mica and move away from it and pretend like it didn't happen, we're like, no. We saw a discrepancy in data.
Pretty cool.
We came in there. We partnered with local nonprofits. They need these jobs to put food on the table. There is no other opportunity. So help us as an industry tell the story so that people, can support these communities. Transparency is such an overused term, but it's not often operationalized. Like people say they're going to be transparent, but they aren't all the time. And I think that people want to hear the stories. And trust is critically important. And part of that is just not bullshitting people.
Right.
So to take it back a little bit, you went to college, you had fun in college. Where was like your first, wow, I'm going to create a business? Like where did that idea first come from, and how did you go about doing it?
Well, I started, my first business idea was I started a cleaning company on Nantucket, whatever. But I wanted to go on this thing called Semester at Sea, and my mom couldn't afford it. So she said, I can pay you your regular tuition, that's all, but I'm tapped out. And so I wanted to see the world. I'm really curious about the world.
How was Semester at Sea?
It was so fun. I mean, it was, to be honest, best 3 months of my life. I mean, 700 kids on a boat going around the world. Being let, starting in Vancouver and ending up in Japan, and then just being let loose. I mean, it was.
And you guys were 18 years old?
Yeah. I mean, it was so fun. I mean, I had the best time ever. It was ridiculous. But anyway, I learned a lot. I mean, I actually fell in love with Hong Kong, and I remember writing my mom a letter, and I'm like, I'm going to live in Hong Kong. And I did. It really has influenced my life.
What year were you in Hong Kong?
I was there from 94 to 95. I was there for 1 year.
Were you there?
I was there. We were together.
Oh, really?
No way.
I was there from 94 to 99.
Oh, that's so funny. With Goldman?
Yeah.
Well, we probably were out in Lankai Fun at
Oh,
the
yeah.
same time. That was like the best for me. There were, if you were, as you were a white woman out there, like you felt like a goddess. I got back to the States. I was like, okay, I'm not as cute as I think I thought I was. But, that year out there, I felt like a goddess every single night. It was really, really fun because there were just hardly any women out there that were not, from Hong Kong. But anyway, I think that was like the first thing. So I started this cleaning company. I figured I could charge cash, $20, an hour under the table, and I paid everyone $10. And I walked off the island with thousands and thousands of dollars, which paid for me to go on semester to sea. And then fast forward, I went to work for Xerox because I wanted to have a sales training program because I literally graduated and my mom gave me a check. My mom gave me a monogrammed briefcase and a check for $5,000 and said, "You're on your own," which was nice of her. It was actually the best thing she ever did for me. But I racked up credit card debt, was out of cash within a couple months, and she looked at me and she said, "Well, get a new job." So I went to Xerox and I did that, and I learned how to be a really effective salesperson by being a really good listener. I was assigned the jewelry district in New York City, which was like no one buys copiers there. And I figured it out, and then
they're all Hasidic Jews.
yes, and they were, and they would laugh at me. I mean, but I learned how to negotiate with these guys. And what I finally realized is that when I finally was like, fine, fuck it, I don't want the business. They were like, okay, here, we'll sign. I mean, and then once I got that, then I mastered it, and I became one of the top salespeople. But in terms of businesses, I started a bridesmaids dress company because I was tired of all these awful dresses that we had to wear, which was not successful. I mean, it wasn't, but it brought me to when I went to London. I met a woman who had started a wedding registry concept there, and I thought, wow, if we could incorporate the internet, this could be really cool. I know this dates me, but the truth is, I was trying to convince men that the $35 billion wedding industry was worth investing in. And by the way, the convenience of online purchasing. I mean, it's crazy, but no one was buying wedding gifts online. I mean, no one would ever go to a store to buy a wedding gift today. You just say, I want to spend $100. What's in my price range? Check it off the list. So that was my first thing, and I sold that company to Martha Stewart.
Martha Stewart, shout out.
Back to Martha Stewart.
I don't know if we're shouting out Martha.
Shouting, yes.
Martha is coming on this.
You get on the call. You ask her about Gregg Renfrew, and you can ask her about the wedding list.
And I'm going to ask her about
Okay,
her
I'm in
house.
hip hop, so I gotta ask. You guys got a little kind of beef?
No, we don't have a beef. I mean, look, I think that
No, come on, we're trying to get
Martha was.
You don't know Martha.
Martha
I'm
was an old
convinced
school
at this
leader.
point.
Here's what I will say about Martha. Martha, if you
We
come
know
on this
Greg.
podcast, I will tell you this.
She's here.
She did an exceptional job, and she continues to do an exceptional job of making sort of the average middle-class American woman. She made her look like a goddess in her home, on things that mattered to her, on a budget, helping her, put together a beautiful dinner, which was important at the time, helping her be a better cook, helping her figure out how to make a holiday, whether it was Hanukkah or Christmas, look beautiful on a budget. She did that unbelievable well. She's incredible with content. And she's actually been incredible with the fact that, she was in Sports Illustrated at 80 and a bit. I mean, good for her, right? She was a very tough old school leader, and a lot of yelling and, not a lot of listening. And I think that it wasn't that we had a beef. When she would say things like, who picked that yellow color in the shirt, everyone else would cower, and I'd say, Martha, you did yesterday in the meeting down the hall. And she didn't really like that much. So that was why we probably didn't get along as well. But she probably respects me, and I respect her too.
I love that answer. Snoop likes her a lot.
Who picked that shirt, Mel?
Virgil. This is one of his first shirts at Louis Vuitton.
Wow.
It's a good-looking shirt.
amazing.
It is a good-looking shirt.
So it's
That's
like
amazing.
a special shirt. Shout out
That
to
is special. That is really special.
R.I.P. Virgil.
Mike's so quiet
I got some
today.
cool questions.
Mike's
So when you actually figured out you made it, what was like one of the first really nice things you did? Whether it was extravagant, whether it was luxury, whether it was taking your family on a trip, whether it was just buying a fast car or the nice watch that you're gonna get next week. What was like your aha moment? Like, I made it. I'm gonna do something really cool.
For myself.
Yeah. Oh, for myself.
Yeah.
For anybody else. But
Well, I think for myself, I'll say two different things. For myself, I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to go a little crazy, and you're not going to say anything about it. And I sold the company on May 20th. Actually, crazy. My dad died when he was young and I was young in my 20s, and he died and his birthday was May 20th, and we closed the deal on May 20th, which was just sort of unbelievable to me. Just because he would have been super proud.
Yeah.
And I said to my husband on May 20th, I'm going to go a little crazy. And on December 31st, he's like, when is crazy going to end? Because I bought a whole bunch of things like jewelry and I don't know. I just had some fun. I went shopping. Like, I love clothes. I love jewelry. And so I did that. But I think the thing that I did that I felt the best about, and I did it genuinely, selflessly, is I have, it makes me sad. You know, I have a brother who's really, really struggled. He's had really severe learning disabilities, and his full-time job is delivering pizza for Papa John's. He's just always struggled, and I was able to put money into a trust for his family, and to make that phone call, like he just was sobbing, and it was just like, it was really nice to watch someone you love struggle that much and to be able to do something about it. And I also took, you know, there were a bunch of people that had helped me along the way, people that had invested in the past that didn't have a lot to invest and believed in me. And I, you know, you can give like $17,000 in a non-taxable gift. So I had a list of people and I just started wiring money. And it's not that it was hugely impactful in their lives, but it was an acknowledgement of like, you were behind me in the beginning, and I just want to thank you today. And it's not that it's going to make or break your life, but it felt good to do that because
you
That's
just
really
cool.
officially kicked every man's ass that was on his seat.
I got a little tear in my eyes. I'm a weeper. I'm always a weeper.
I cry a lot. That's okay.
That's amazing. That's actually the best answer we've had so far. Everybody's had really dope answers, but that's really fucking cool.
Yeah, and it's really why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
In a sense, is like, I mean, it's, you know, giving back through.
One thing men do that women don't is we rate everything. Ah, she's first place, second place, third place.
Well, I'm definitely first
You
place.
do.
I'm going to make sure. I'm going to hold that title
my-
for a long time.
My daughter's always like, Dad, it's not always a competition. I was like, yeah, but that was the good course. Where, like the cook will bring out food. And I'll
You
be
in
like,
particular rate everything. Mike is like nonstop, nonstop.
9 out of 10.
you were the one who just said best. I didn't say that. I
You
would
should
have said
be my
that's a
son.
wonderful answer.
My son is super competitive. He's wedged between these two very precocious sisters. And I'll always say to him, J-Mo, like, not everything is competition. And he'll say, yes, it is, Mom. 100% it is. You know, he gets
And he's
so,
right.
Well, our recent competition was like Ronaldo versus Taylor Swift. Who's more important? And it's like, he makes him so angry.
Who is more important?
Taylor Swift.
And so I say
think
Taylor Swift. Of course, he
Ronaldo.
says Ronaldo. So his
Worldwide?
Christmas stocking, I
Taylor
put
Swift.
like Taylor as, you know, Woman of the Year, Time Magazine. I mean, it like basically ruined his Christmas. And so, you know, one of my board members works for the NFL. It's like, do you know the impact that she's had on the NFL? Hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's like, that's not true. And I'm like, it is true. So anyway,
T Swift.
T Swizzle all the
Ronaldo
way.
10 years ago.
Let's ask the audience. Can you guys comment and tell us who's more important? You know what? You got to put Messi in there. Ronaldo,
All right, Messi's pretty great,
Messi,
too.
or Taylor Swift? Should we put Drake in there, Mike?
I got a funny Drake story, but I'll tell you later.
Tell
Yeah.
us.
Well,
And if you had a superpower, and if 2 questions, if you had a superpower, what would it be like Marvel superpower? And if you was president of the United States for a day and could make one rule, what would it be?
Why don't you
wow.
just give her a third question, too? Give you a test.
Have a third if you want.
I'm going to talk out of my ass, admittedly, because I don't know. This is not an answer I've prepared. I would say a superpower is if you could figure out how to turn it off at times. I think that being the best listener in the world would probably allow you to gain the most wisdom and have the most impact. And I think if I were, well, first of all, maybe I'll be president for 4 years or 8. You never know. I've thought about that at times.
I'm
We
voting
need a
for you.
female
I
president
like it.
someday. But I think if I were president for one day, God, I wish we could just get back to the facts and stop all the chatter. Just let's like stick with the facts.
Yes.
Like let's go down the middle. Let's make calm, rational decisions and stop all the stories around the facts. I would just love to shut down all
Washington.
of the BS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if that's what I would do, but that would be one thing I would love to do as the president of the United States.
And do you really think about politics?
I have thought about it, but I think it's so complicated right now, unfortunately, as we all know. I do think that through building Beautycounter and through representing hundreds of thousands of women now over the past 11 years and going from city to city across America, that I've had the ability to gain access to real America and real Americans and to listen to people on both sides of the aisle. And what I've learned is that in general, we do care about the same things and that we can find power in our collective voice. And I do think that the world would be a better place if there were more women in power. And I think there's a balance. There's an imbalance today. And I don't think it should be all women or all men, but I think that having a woman with emotional intelligence who can inspire and lead towards a better outcome, I think would be really amazing. Am I that person? I don't know. But I've thought about it.
cool.
It's just kind of a nightmare business right now, as we all know.
You got my vote. I'm in.
Mine too.
We'll see. I'll let you know if I ever run.
Mike had once thought about running for politics, but
Did you?
I try to get my sister. You remind me a lot of my sister. She's a turn older. I think she's just had her birthday today. No, it's tomorrow. Shout out my sister's birthday.
Happy
And
birthday.
I think she turned 63. I'm not sure you're supposed to talk about a woman's age on a podcast, but
There you go.
there
cares?
now
There
now
you
it's
go,
out
being a
there.
man again.
But I actually tried to get her to think about running for president at one point. She gave it a lot of thought, just because same thing. She's traveled the world. She's traveled the country. She's a powerful woman, and she'd have been great. But
Yeah.
she
By the
really-
way, both his sisters been on the cover of Forbes, kicked his ass. I think he got
That's
a little
amazing.
article one time.
I have 3 sisters.
That's amazing.
Do you? I was going to ask. With you seem like curiosity is a big part of it. Also, and we have everyone that's on here. I think we've noticed like a strain of curiosity is one big thing. You want to talk about that?
Are you a
Do you
reader?
consider yourself? Yeah, you said you
I
were a
love to
reader.
read. I love to read. I I love documentaries and I like fiction. I mean, I can read, the trashiest novels and things. I read every night before I go to bed, even if I've had too much to drink. I just like to read. I think curiosity is everything. And I think that certainly in business, I feel like arrogance has no place in the world as far as I'm concerned. I'm like done with it. The minute you think you're important and you know more, you just aren't. I mean, you just really, really aren't. And I would say to my children, never assume you know more about a subject than the person with whom you guys all think you're really important. Maybe you are.
I
guess
think
not.
someone in this room is making your list for sure. I won't say who it is, but
It's a tough crowd, you all. But I always say to my kids, like, never assume you know more about a subject than the person with whom you're speaking. Always ask questions. And I think you just learn a lot from people. Everyone's had different experiences. The smartest people I know, and I've, like you all, I've met some super interesting, powerful people in my life. The people that have achieved the most success in the world are the ones that are asking questions all day long. I had the great fortune of having Bono as an investor in Beautycounter and an ally. And I remember my first time meeting him, and I was so nervous. And he just asked me one question after the other. And I thought, here's someone who could be the most arrogant person in the world, and yet all he wanted to do. And yes, he's really funny and tells stories, but people that are really successful ask good questions all the time. They seek to learn, and they learn from younger people and older people and everyone in between.
Yeah.
Mike always says that. Shout out to Mike.
Yeah. Well, really, we're like intergenerational, right? Like, I mean, Mike and I have like kind of raised our families together, but like we have everybody from like 5-year-olds to like 85-year-olds, at parties and in rooms, and it's super interesting.
I thought you had kids from 5 to 85. I was
No.
like, wow. Okay. I was like, I don't
We,
think you guys are that old.
we look good for age for guys,
I was like,
that don't
you're
use,
really-
for guys that don't use a lot of product.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we have a tradition on Business Untitled where we give our guest a gold coin,
An ounce of gold.
an ounce of gold.
Who's it sponsored by?
Well, it's sponsored by JM Bullion, our first sponsor, Business Untitled's only sponsor. JM Bullion is the largest direct-to-consumer gold company. And they're awesome. They called us up. They said, we want to sponsor you. No formal contract, handshake. They sent us the gold coins. We give them a shout out. And our guest gives us their ounce of gold. You've given a lot of ounces of gold today, but like one thing that you want to leave the listeners with, and our target audience are really underserved, want to be entrepreneurs. And so we thought we'd share our stories and share people's, our guest wisdom. And so here's your ounce of gold.
Thank you.
Today it's worth $2,300. In a year it's going to be worth $3,000. Gold is going higher. Mark
is.
my words.
It is. Thank you. That's an incredible gift.
And he sends you 4 Bitcoins to your crypto wallet.
Great. Good. I'll take those too. I will. Absolutely. I'm invested in crypto and I'm trying to learn it. I would say, so whether you're a woman or man, if you are someone who's wanting to be an entrepreneur and you feel that you're underrepresented or you don't have the confidence. First, I said this earlier, but I will always reiterate that I genuinely believe you have everything you need to be successful. You just got to dig deep and find that confidence. And that as you venture into the world of trying to raise capital or build a business or tell people about your ideas, know that you don't need people's validation to do what you want to do. You need to be willing to work your ass off for a very long time, but you'll never get the validation you seek from others. You need to be able to do this for yourself. And my mom, when I was a young woman, said to me, Gregg, you are the cake and everything else in the ice will be the icing, but you need to build a strong foundation. Men, like wealth, all these things, that'll be icing on your cake, but like can you feel strong in your own personal foundation and be confident? Because cake in and of itself is really sweet. The icing is just the stuff on the top. And I think that especially women, we always are looking for other people to validate as opposed to just like owning who we are. So I would just say, you've got this and just go for it and don't look back.
That might be the best ounce of gold we've done yet.
She's like,
I'm serious.
This is a
That was
triple gold
great.
medalist right here.
Triple
A triple
gold
gold
medalist.
medalist.
And,
You came in here to kick ass.
Yeah, no, I think that was an amazing ounce of gold, and I also think it's great to have a really badass woman entrepreneur on this show.
Yeah.
We'd
you for
love
having
it
me.
if you
Thank
thought of
you.
thank you, and we'd love it if you thought of other people that might be interested in sharing their message because we're really looking for badass women entrepreneurs to
I
spread the word.
100% will. And thank you all for having me. I mean, it was when John Foley, my friend, called me and told me about you all. He and I have had, a lot of good conversations over the years, and I was excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
Shout out to John Foley.
John
Shout
Foley.
out to John Foley.
Foley.
All right, that's it, people. Another
very
episode
much.
in the can. Business Untitled.